All right, what's going on, everyone? Happy Monday. Man, we are almost halfway through May. It's crazy, right? Like, it's crazy. Like, we're already like getting into like the meat of like the summer's coming up, kids getting off school. It's like, man, I'm kind of excited. Ian, you got any plans for this summer? Any big plans?
Yeah, man, we're nonstop. It's been, I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, what? Where did the year go? May? Mid-May? Let's see. This summer, I got a lot of plans. So we bought a house in Lake Arrowhead. So we're going to live there in the summer for about
Love it.
5 or 6 weeks. So we got a boat and we're going to be trying to figure out how to use it. It's a first time boat owner. So I'm going to fumble with that, fishing, family time. We're going up to Redwoods for a week. I'm actually speaking at a leadership conference in the Redwoods, and I'm bringing my family there. So that should be really interesting.
That's great, man.
And then I'm going to Cabo for a week too. So it's like all this starts in June. So it's going to be a busy summer for sure.
I love it. Well, I'm sure you're going to have a blast. We're going to Costa Rica for a month starting on the 31st. So
nice.
I'll be working, here or there, but just going to try to do that thing. We've never done anything remotely like that, so
we're in the same boat, man. No pun intended.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. That's cool, man. Yeah, that's cool. So for those of you who don't know, Ian is if you're in sales and you're a frontline, you want to be an enterprise seller or just a seller who wants to get better at their craft. I feel like Ian Koniak is a guy that you got to make sure that you follow. What I love about his content in particular is this isn't just some guy who's been in sales for a few years and now is saying, I've got the best practices for you, right? Like, this is somebody who was the #1 enterprise AE at Salesforce globally, sold over $100 million in his career, hit quota 16 years, broken 7 figures 4 times. So this is somebody who's not just, oh yeah, like I'm going to post on LinkedIn this thing that I learned in the last 6 months. This is somebody who's actually like been there and done it for an extended period. So Ian, welcome to the show. Really excited for the conversation today.
Me too, man. This is twice in 2 months, so I love it.
That's good, man. We'll just keep it going every 60 days. We'll just run it back. So,
well,
all right, man. For those of you who aren't familiar with Ian, why don't you talk to us? Maybe give people just a quick high level on you. We're going to get into these kind of top 3 skills, and what I love about what we're talking about now is I always talk. I do a lot of talk around processes and tactical things, and what I love about the conversation today is we're really going to talk about this. There's certain hard skills in there, but it's also the soft skills that I don't talk as much about. So that's why I'm really excited for this. So maybe Ian, talk a little bit about your journey and why like this topic is so called like near and dear to your heart.
I mean, I hesitate to share my accolades and success at times, and then other times I just want to throw it in everyone's face because success leaves clues. And I say this because I've been in sales 20 years. I guess 23 if you count my entrepreneurship journey the past 4 years. But I started in sales in 2002, and I spent 19 years at 2 companies: Rico, which was selling copiers, very transactional, and then Salesforce, which is very strategic, and I was in their enterprise division. So 19 years in sales, I hit quota 16 of the 19 years. And my journey was in Rico. In my first 5 years, I was a sales rep, and then I went into leadership. So I was a frontline sales manager, then I managed managers, and then I was the director of sales. When I left, I was running a $60 million business, and we were doing, I had 70 reps and 10 managers under me. And in every role that I had, I finished as a top performer. I finished top, call it top 5%. And then I go to Salesforce, and then, it was like a different world. It wasn't selling. It was more strategic. And it was like that initial 10 years were like grinding. Activity gives pipeline, gives results. And I had that grit, that hustle, but I was missing the components that help you sell large strategic deals, like multi-threading and understanding business acumen and knowing how to get to executives. So I ended up missing my quota 3 years in a row. Those are those 3 years that I said 16 of 19. And it just rocked my world. My whole identity was shattered, and I just didn't really know who I was anymore because I was always this top performer guy.
Right.
And then it was like, it was like really humbling. And so I started a journey into personal development 7 years ago. in 2017. I went and I hired a coach and I joined a mastermind, and I really just kind of like started from the beginning saying, I don't know anything. I don't know what I don't know. I need to get help. And since that time, really in the past 7 years, my results have skyrocketed. So when I really took that step back, I got to #1 at Salesforce. I made club 4 years in a row. Then I went to be an entrepreneur. And as my entrepreneurship journey, we've just been on a growth rocket ship, and we'll be an Inc. 5000 in our first eligible year. We'll be an Inc. 5000 company.
Awesome.
So
Congratulations, man.
So I say this because success leaves clues, and the things that make me successful are things that I genuinely think most people are able to do. They're all things within our control. And that's what I teach people, because it does empower people to go and change how they think and their habits and what they work on. And so for me, as long as I'm following my own advice, and I teach as much for myself as I do for other people. So
I feel the 100% the same way. It's like, and one of my favorite things we do, and we don't do a ton of it, but we built out some pretty robust like leadership development programs. And every time we do one of those programs, I'm always just like, oh yeah, Jake, you need to do this shit too. You know, like, don't forget, like stop giving answers, ask better questions, you know, like I agree 100%. So let's talk about these things. We've got mindset, stoicism, method, and authenticity, right? We're going to break down kind of each one of those. And, you know, like, look, let's dive into mindset first. You know, I think it's really, mindset to me is really interesting because, you know, we've had an archetype in sales for a long time of like, you know, this type of person, this type of mindset, you know, I played lacrosse at Princeton or something. And like, that's the, you know, the mindset you've got to have, you know, is this, you know, crush everyone mindset. And that's, you know, potentially, right? I think that there's a lot of that in there. But how do you think about, you know, outward focus versus inward focus sellers, you know, and what do you kind of see as the difference and kind of how you define mindset?
So what as you're talking like this, I got to crush everyone. You're just kind of like, that's like the old me. Like I got to be the best. I'm looking, it's kind of an outward focus. It's like, you're looking at your competition, you're looking at the leaderboard, you're looking at like, I want to be the best, but in comparison to what, right? What if your team is all under plan? You could be the best and be 80%, right? So there's really two things that I think are most important when it comes to mindset, which fundamentally will help everything else. It'll help your habits, it'll help your skills, because when you think right, everything else flows. So the first thing is what I would call the inward to outward mindset. And the second thing is having the fire burning, So let's talk about the fire burning first, because it's a little easier. It's about your purpose. It's about why you show up every day. If you do not feel connected to some type of purpose or some type of meaning or some type of why, then it's very hard to put in the day-to-day. It's very hard to show up consistently and work a full day every day and do the hard things. It just is. And so for me, it always starts there. It's like I reset my vision probably twice a year. And the vision of like, hey, I want to go to 3 million this year. Or I want to help this many people. It's not as compelling as like a personal vision. Like, why is this important to me? Right. And so that's something for me, having like a personal why and having a deep reason for what I'm doing is everything. Because that's what keeps the fire burning for me to go and do the things I need to do. So that's kind of associated with mindset, because it's how you think and it's why. And so for literally the past 7 years, I've had a very, very deep reason to want to be successful every single year. And if you don't have it, you know, you don't need to like manufacture it. It's got to come. You got to sometimes let things percolate, and it takes a while. It's not something you just say, okay, what's my why? I want to make this much money, this and that. Like it's deeper than that. It's got to be something that's really near and dear to you, and that keeps you going. So that's the first thing. The second thing is like how you show up with your clients, and that's inward to outward mindset is what I call it. So most salespeople they have an inward focused mindset. So they're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their goals. Okay. Let me give you an example. My goals are to hit my quota. My goals are to sell this deal. My goals are to achieve this outcome. And every day I'm thinking about my goals. An outward facing mindset is your goals are more important than my goals, and my goals are directly going to come out of helping you achieve your goals. So if I'm on a sales call with a client, I'm not talking about our products or our services or pitching anything. I'm really trying to understand why they're talking to me in the first place. What are their goals? Where are they struggling?
Yep.
Where are they challenged? And I'm just trying to understand and see if I can help them. So Brian Tracy says this, and I just love this quote. He said, approach a customer with the idea of helping them solve a problem or achieve a goal rather than selling a product or service. And for me, that is an outward facing mindset. It's like, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to see if I can help you. So here are the areas I typically help clients. Tell me what's going on with you in these areas. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if it makes sense to explore this further. And if so, we can talk about next steps. So that's one example of inward versus outward. Okay. Another example would be I'm here to sell versus I'm here to serve, right? It's genuinely trying to show up with the intention of serving people and not attaching yourself to whether or not they buy from you. Right. And it can be really frustrating because a lot of times, I'm sure you know this, you can be talking to people that genuinely you're leading them. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. You can literally try and shove his head in the water and hold him there, but he might still not drink. And so you can't make people's decisions for them. And I think that's really important. All you can do is understand where they're coming from and show them a path to get them from where they are to where they want to go. And if they want to walk that path with you, and if they feel confident that you can help them, then most likely they will decide to work with you. So that's your job as a seller, is understand where they're trying to go and make sure you have a compelling plan, an idea, and clear description of how you're going to help them that matches their environment and where they are right now. And it might look different for everyone. So that's kind of what I call inward versus outward facing. Is it's not about me. We're not here to talk about my products and services. We're here to talk about you. And if it makes sense, then we can talk about how it can help.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, and even you talked about too, like the mindset of like, you know, being passionate about it. And to me, it's really interesting. What I realized early in my sales career was my mindset was like, I was just very curious about people's business. And I genuinely, like, I believed in every company that I worked for that we could help them with specific business outcomes. Right. Mm-hmm. And I believed that. And I think like that is, I feel like, such an important part of the mindset. Like, if you don't believe that your product is going to help them accomplish whatever the goal is that your product helps to accomplish, I mean, I don't think you can be a top performer. And then I think the other issue is, look, you know, it doesn't mean that you're all selling like nonprofit software, right? Or something like where it's, you know, like to me, it wasn't as much where I got the energy from, Ian, is like, it wasn't in, you know, an idea, I guess, of service to some extent, but it was like, I genuinely just the idea of I'm going to help this person grow their business, or I'm going to help this person to, you know, get the right people on board, or, you know, whatever it was. Like, I genuinely believed it. And for me, from a mindset standpoint, if you don't have that level of conviction, mm-hmm. I don't think you can be a top performer, because to your point, it'll just feel like a sham or a grind, right? Like, you know?
It's sales is a transfer. This is the thing. It's not about knowing. It's not about all the tactics. It's about energy. And sales is a transfer of energy. Your enthusiasm for what you're selling, and specifically your ability to help your clients with what you're selling, is transferable. So if you're not enthusiastic about it, if you're not passionate about it, if you don't fundamentally believe you can help the clients, right, they're not going to believe it either. It's way more important that they don't need to believe you, but they definitely need to believe that you believe everything you're saying, and then they'll believe it, because they don't know everything about your product. But they need to believe that you're passionate, because they see that energy, they see that conviction, they see that enthusiasm, right? And I'm not talking about just extrovert or introvert. It's about the way you talk. It's about the energy by which you're talking, about your ability to help them, or your customers that you've already helped that look similar, or just that general passion. They'll say, okay, this is the kind of person I want to work with, because I trust them, because they're really, you know, they're invested in helping me.
Well, they believe it. I can tell that they really believe, and they're invested in it, right? Versus just, and that's where I feel like that's where Medic and some of these methodologies, I feel like have really gone haywire in the last like 10 years or so, where we've started to use MEDDIC as like a framework for the conversation. And like, that is the goal, is I've got to get this economic and this champion, and, you know, I've got to identify what the metric is. And it's kind of trained, because it's lazy. It's like trained a lot of sellers that the mindset is qualification. The mindset is, I'm qualifying you. My job is to only talk to people who, you know, are the highest quality or have a pain. And how do you think about that? Like, if you're a rep there and, you know, you're talking to them and they say that to you, like, hey man, look, I get it, but my boss is telling me I'm supposed to be doing all this other stuff.
I think the MEDDIC frameworks and the GAP frameworks and the PREDICT framework, which is what I use, and Challenger, they're just that. They're methodologies. And a methodology is effective to the extent that the delivery person is effective. So if you're using it as a checklist and you're interrogating, no one wants that. No one, that's not the way people interact. I think the missing link for all of this is just conversational and people skills like you and I are having. You said, hey, it was refreshing to come on your show and just have a conversation, and vice versa. I think that's the way we need to approach our clients, is just as human beings. And when you're using a checklist and you're trying to qualify them, it comes across as very robotic. So I think that those soft skills of just being able to be interested, I always say, be interested, not interesting. So being interested is asking questions. So if they say, hey, this is a problem, right? Yeah, sure. There's metrics you have to qualify with MEDDIC or even PREDICT. I have the I stands for impact, right? What's the impact of solving the problem? So if I'm talking to someone and I'm saying, hey, you know, they say I have this problem, I say, just out of curiosity, why is it a problem? How's that impacting your world? What does that look like in your business? That is very different than, okay, tell me the key metrics that are impacted by this problem. If I wouldn't say it like that. So you can, if you work on the conversation and you make it natural and you have a genuine curiosity, these questions that any methodology is attempting to answer will get surfaced. The timeline, why is it important? What's going on in your business that's causing this to be important right now? That is a good question. But if you say, what's your timeline? It's not. So it's like, you got to phrase it in a way that's human.
100%. And I think for a lot of you listening, like, again, but you have to go, like, going back to mindsets, like, you got to be curious. And like, you might not be, you know, I naturally don't love small talk at all. And so, you know, it kind of took me,
I hate it.
It took me a little bit to figure this out. But whenever I just frame myself of like, all right, how can I help this person's business? It kind of helps me to kind of get in that mindset. So the second thing that you've got, Ian, is around stoicism. And I know this is something you in particular are really big on. Talk a little bit about how you implement that, you know, when you talk to sales reps, et cetera. Tell a bit about what has that meant for you, and why do you think it's such an important skill for people to master?
For anyone who's unfamiliar with stoicism, go get The Daily Stoic. That's a great book. There's also a book called The Book of Mental Toughness Mantras by Chris Dorris, who's a good buddy of mine. They're great intros to stoicism. But the way I think about stoicism is, there's also one I'm reading right now called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And they're all very kind of like of the same general philosophy. So stoicism is a philosophy that helps you control your emotional state. And sales is a roller coaster, so is entrepreneurship. And the way I think about stoicism is, Stoics, it's not they don't feel emotions. It's just they don't let their emotions dictate what they do, right? They observe them and they say, okay, makes sense. And when something bad happens, it's a great Stoic philosophy is the problem is the gift, right? The problem is the gift. So when something bad happens, what is the gift in it? Just being able to pause and say, what is the opportunity or what is the gift in this? And this is something genuinely I have to practice every day, because every day there's problems that come up and that arise. So I'll give you two quick kind of tactics you can use in stoicism. So the first is attach to the inputs and detach from the outcomes. Okay. So if you think of outcomes in sales as, I'm going to hit my quota, I'm going to close this deal, I'm going to get promoted, whatever, those are external. You can't control any of those things, genuinely. What you can control is doing things that give you the best odds of closing the deal, hitting quota, getting promoted. right? And so that's really what stoicism is. So if you think of it, outcomes, flip the word around, outcomes come out, flip it around, come out. Inputs, flip the word, put in. So outcomes come out of inputs, which is what you put in. And all you can control, the only thing you can control is what you put in. So that's what I think about on a daily basis. I use a system called the 12-week year, and every week I write down the key things I'm going to put in. I rank those things, and that's what I'm worried about. And I do the same thing every single day. Okay. I block off my calendar. I say, here are the critical things that are top priority, block them off. And it's very robotic in how I go about my business. I'll give you an example. April was our worst month of the fiscal year. It was the worst month of our year so far. We had great Q1. And then April came, I had a big live event I was running, and my main head of sales went to Bangladesh to be with his family, and sales were just a third of what they were averaging in the other 3 months. But I genuinely did not feel any emotion or worry because I know we're doing the right thing. So what I did do is take massive action already in May to be able to control that not being dependent on one person going away or me getting tied up planning my event. So what are we doing? Well, we have 3 key initiatives right now that we're working on to drive lead volume so that we have a consistent business. One is the BDR agency that we're hiring to go set up meetings for our team. So we're going to test that out, see how that works. Another one is we're doing LinkedIn ads. We just hired an agency because me and my marketer don't know what we're doing with LinkedIn ads. So we're going to have a professional agency come in. And then the third thing is we're going to do something similar to what you're doing here, which is a weekly show where we get registrations and we drive leads that way. And so it's not that, oh my God, sales are down. It's okay, sales are down. What do we do? And it was only 1 month, by the way.
Right.
We've never been in the red. It's not like even with the sales down, we were still covering, payroll and expenses. But I still took that as a sign to say, okay, let's not be in a place where we're so dependent on 1 or 2 people. Let's have some systems to consistently generate leads. So that's very stoicism, is like just attaching to the inputs and detaching from the outcomes and kind of focusing on what we control. I'll share one more story.
Yeah.
We did a big course launch, AI for the strategic seller. I think Daniel and you linked up on the AI course. Genuinely, it is the most innovative thing I've seen in my life for any course. I cannot tell you, it's taken 20 years of the frameworks that I teach and Untap Your Sales Potential and applying AI on top of every single one of these frameworks. And we launched an early adopter program. The course is $1,000, which is a steal, but we launched it for $197 to get early adopters, and it wasn't selling. And we're like, what is, and I got so upset for like a day. And I'm like, what's wrong with people? And I started pointing the finger externally, saying, what's wrong with everyone? Why won't they invest in themselves? Why won't people spend a measly $197? This is going to change their life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? That's totally the wrong attitude. Here's what we're going to do. We'll do a campaign. We're going to raise the price to $997 in 10 days. This is massively undervalued. I wrote 5 emails. I did 5 LinkedIn posts. We sold 200 seats of that right when I did the campaign and a $40,000 launch in 10 days. Absolutely knocked it out of the park in a very short amount of time because I took action versus just putting a low price and then expecting it to sell. So your business will move at the pace you do. So again, you always want to stay in motion. You always want to focus on the inputs. You got to keep the fire burning, and the rest is up to God. The rest is out of your control. And so that's kind of like stoicism in a nutshell.
I love that. Yeah. And I think for a lot of one thing I'll add before we kind of go to the third skill here, we're already getting close to time, is it doesn't mean you don't experience the emotion. I think a lot of times, especially with men, right, we tend to say, sometimes I think people will, say stoicism, but reality, like, you got to experience some things. And I think this is an important call out. You made this comment that you're not burying emotions. You're not burying, you're being honest with yourself about what it is. Again, you're attaching to the input, and you're also, if you need to dig in, you still dig in. Right. You don't just, let's just tuck this away and never talk about it. Right. And so I think that's just an important call out for a lot of people. If you're listening, of like, nobody's saying to just suppress the feeling around an outcome when it happens, but it's not attaching your worth to the outcome that I think a lot of people do. They attach their worth to the outcome.
That's right. It's I am not my number. Right. success is, this is a great John Wooden quoted, success is peace of mind, which comes from knowing you did your best to become the best you're capable of becoming. And as long as we're doing our best every day, and some days might vary from others, like genuinely, you can sleep well at night. At least that's been my experience.
That's it, man. I agree. All right. Last but not least here, we got about 5 minutes. Let's talk about authenticity and why do you feel like, again, out of the three that you talk, that you think are kind of most critical, why authenticity?
I think that people buy from people they like and trust. And again, for me, like I'll get personal with you. I struggle with addiction for most of my life. And I've been, in recovery for 4 years. And, for me, that was a big part of it. Is like, I had this one outward persona that I was kind of, successful, top performer. And then silently I was like medicating. And so, for me, it was like it all kind of came crashing down in my personal life with my family and my children. I come from a long line of addicts. And, for me, I made a decision when I got in recovery that my kids would not inherit the generational curse, that it would stop with me. But that's relatively new. It's been 4 years for me living this way, but it's made all the difference to be able to be the same way, whether you're with your wife or whether you're with your friends. Like, you'll get me the same version as my clients get me, as LinkedIn gets me, as my kids get me. And it's just so freeing not to have to put on a mask. So again, at the very personal level, there's a lot of freedom in not trying to hide behind a certain image or what people think about you. And I think that's really, for a lot of people, it's disarming. They feel very comfortable naturally when you can be yourself with them because you got nothing to prove. I think that you certain people you talk to and it's just, they're genuine. I get that from you. It's like you talk to certain people and you connect because you're both real. And I think that is missing, honestly, from a lot of sellers, and it gives them a bad reputation. So number one, it's a lot more freeing and it's a lot more comforting to other people. And what else can you be than yourself? So that's, at the personal level, it's a lot nicer way to live, and it's a lot more peaceful way to live. The second thing is like, being authentic and genuine allows you to be truthful. So if you want to say something, right, you can say it honestly to them versus holding back because you don't want to offend them. You don't want to go around your champion. If you're not getting the power and your champion's not helping you, like just having a real conversation about that. What's going on? I'm sensing resistance. We normally lose deals unless we get these people involved. Like, tell me, are you concerned? What's going on? Like, I'm feeling like you're not fully bought in yet. Do you mind sharing? Like, that's a hard conversation to have with people.
Yeah.
But when you're genuinely not attached to the outcome and back to that inward facing, you're trying to help, you can have that conversation a lot more easily. So being authentic lets you call things out as you see them, and not caring what people think about you. Honestly, is if you look at the challenger sale, like 50% of high performers in strategic selling in complex sales are challengers, and challengers give a different point of view, right? They challenge the customer to think differently. They give them if the customer already knew, they wouldn't need you if they knew what you knew, right? So I think it's really important to be authentic and genuine and saying, hey, the way you're doing it, I understand why you're doing it, but this isn't the best way if you want to achieve these goals, resolve these challenges. And here's what that looks like. Customers crave that. They desire that.
That's the only reason they want to talk to a person, right? Like if you're just reciting something I could watch a video of, like on a demo, or you're just sending over a generic proposal, I don't need to talk to you. I talk to people, and executives talk to people that make them smarter. And that means you have a point of view. And I think that that's such a good call out. I think, people, and again, it's just interesting. And I feel like a lot of people never get over this hump in their career where they've got two different, again, you talk the two different people. I come in, I whenever I, lead leaders, I'm like, leader, you don't come in and put your management cap on, like your leadership cap on. Like there's no chance you're going to be an epic leader if you're so incongruent between your different, I see your Instagram and you're out raging at the club. And then in here, you're like, buttoned up and, a dick or something. So I think it just, like, to your point, it makes life a lot easier. And my advice would be just the twofold. What it means to be authentic to yourself will evolve over time, right? And I think that's and really I think a lot of people too is like, it's not just like keeping it real about everything. It's like, what are the things that make me me? Like, what are like the handful of things that are like most important? Because sometimes I might need to round some edges to get to where I want to be, and that doesn't mean I'm being inauthentic. It means that I'm learning more and more about the person that I am and who I want to be. And I think for a lot of people, you've got to give yourself that space of like, look, what are the things that are really the most important? And then what are the things that you're open to change, because they're not serving you anymore as a big part of this.
Yeah, it takes a lot of self-awareness. I mean, again, 7 years of personal development, you can remove a lot of the armor that you spend your lifetime building and putting on. And it's kind of like we spend our lifetime getting here, then we reach a point, they call it a midlife crisis, or around 41, it typically happens. Japanese, they have a year for 41. I forgot my accountant's Japanese. He told me, he's like, oh, you're 41. That's exactly what happens when you're 41. But you get to a point where you're like, question everything. Like, is what I'm doing really who I am? And is this my most meaningful work? And it shifts from ambition to more meaning and purpose. And I think, again, you can't force this stuff, right?
No.
Everyone's on their own journey, and we evolve over time. If you saw me 15 years ago, you wouldn't recognize me because I was wild, crazy, and I was leading a huge sales team. And I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, but at the time, that's who I was. That's what I knew. And you evolve and you change over time. So everything happens the way it's supposed to, right? And in the exact timing of what it's meant to be happening. That's a very, very stoic way of looking at it too.
I love it, man. Well, look, I appreciate it, Ian. Thanks for joining. And yeah, let's see what we got going on this week. I think, do we have me and KD? No, me and KD were last week. We did our AI Unleashed last week. So no AI Unleashed this week, but sign up. I dropped the link in there. And also check out Ian's course. I'm actually checking it out. Literally, I think I just got a free link. So I'm going to be checking it out.
You did. Yeah, we want to give our AI leaders access, because it honestly, it's not even my course. It's a guy in my program who, Daniel Bornyansky, he coached me for 2 years. He took everything I taught and has learned how to apply a combination of ChatGPT, Bing, Copilot, and Crystal Knows on top of everything I teach in a very unique way. But it's the frameworks I'm teaching combined with the AI that is
no-brainer.
The sauce. I mean, it really is. I'm mind blown. When I went through it,
I'm pumped to check it out.
Unbelievable stuff.
Amazing. All right, everybody. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Ian, appreciate you, man. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.
Take care.